Hey everybody, it is Monday afternoon, and as breezy as it is now, it is supposed to get really windy this afternoon, so I want to get out here and take a little stroll around the yard while we've got the opportunity. It's a beautiful sunny day, and the garden has exploded since the last time we did a yard tour here. We've had some warm weather and lots of rain, and that is a recipe for an awesome garden this time of year. So this bed has way too much in it to go over and point to everything and name everything, but we do have some stuff of interest in this bed, or these beds I should say, that we're looking forward to. We've got a lot of iris coming up this year that we've been working on getting into this bed, and they are looking good so far. Not nearly there yet, but we've got lots of good flower spikes and everything, so that's exciting. We've got a lot of rudbeckia or black-eyed Susans, which are the Maryland state flower, and we've got echinacea, which are very similar, the coneflower. What else do we have in here? Of course, we've got the azalea, which is the big centerpiece this time of year. That is absolutely stunning when it's fully open. We're about 4 or 5 days away from it being peak, so I will try to get out here again when that's fully opened. It's just absolutely breathtaking. And we've got a few other azaleas that are starting to go, and we'll see them as we make our way around the yard too. Just trying to think anything else we can cover from this bed. Not really, not that I can think of. Phlox, that's the other thing we've got coming up in this bed everywhere. We've been seeing them, and I think they're self-propagating, which doesn't surprise me. And we've got them coming up pretty much everywhere, so they'll be pretty. Lots of flowers on them. So that's also something to look forward to. It's been pretty interesting. We have got our hummingbirds back. We do not have the kind of feeder you see where you've got dozens of hummingbirds. Those are feeders that are on migratory routes, and those are all transient birds. We have residential birds, and we are right on sort of an overlap of two different birds' territories, so we get a lot of squabbling and fighting of the hummingbirds around our feeders. Right as I was starting to film, one came up, but it flew away right as I was starting to record, so we didn't get to see any of it. But the exciting thing is for the first time ever, we've got a Baltimore Oriole that's been coming and hitting the feeder here. And I didn't know that the Orioles are actually nectar feeders. They like fruits and nectars and sweet stuff. Apparently grape jam or grape jelly is one of their favorites. So if you can see the little pot up there, that's got some grape jam in it. We didn't have any grape jelly, and the Oriole has been hitting this feeder here. So that's really exciting. I don't know if it's got to do with all of the stories I've been hearing about how animals are coming out now that people are staying inside. We're seeing more and more animals, but for the first time in my life ever, we've got Baltimore Orioles coming to our feeders now. So look forward to any video of that I actually get. I will certainly be posting some of that. Probably talk more about that bed from the top looking down on it. There's tons of stuff going on up in there. And as far as the yard, I think that's even worth mentioning at the moment. You can see I've got all these little purple flowers sticking up. Some of them are ground cover and are meant to be there. Others are just weeds that are growing through the yard. But you know, pretty purple flowers are pretty purple flowers, whether it's a weed or not. And they'll get mowed over eventually, and we won't have them anymore. But what I'm considering doing is simply letting this hill go wild so I don't have to mow it anymore. And it's halfway there simply from the amount of hostas that we have growing up here. We never deadhead the hostas, so those flower spikes always fall down and the seeds tumble down the hill, and we wind up sort of planting hostas all over this front hill. And of course that holds true for pretty much every bed everywhere that's got hostas in it. They just self-seed everywhere. We've got bajillions of hostas. I'll show you some patches where we've got just thousands of them coming up in the yard. I haven't mowed over them yet this year, but at some point I'll be out here with the lawnmower and just mowing over them. So the missus has been working on this bed, trying to actually plug it with hostas, larger ones. Almost all of these you see right here have been put in within the last year, and even some early this season so far. So once these all get opened up and filled in, this is all just going to be nothing but hostas. And you can even see here where the bed used to end, and now we've even let this kind of grow. There's going to be ferns and hostas, and I think there's some foxglove and a few different varieties of ferns coming up in there. So eventually that border will just be gone and just be part of the garden. So coming over this way, you will see these things everywhere too. These are the tiger lilies I talk about. I have some of them down in the basement in the fish room. They don't look anything like this because they don't get actual sunlight in the basement. I do have a pretty powerful LED shining on them, but nothing compares to natural sunlight. So that's what they look like. They will be taller than me and have huge dinner plate size flowers on them not too long from now. Not a lot going on over here. That's all pretty much done its thing. We do have this one allium that is not yet bloomed. That will open up like a big purple firework looking flower, so that's pretty cool. Our lily of the valleys have already come and gone. All this huge amount of bleeding hearts that was over here. A lot of this got hit by the cold. We had a really cold snap last week and a few frosts overnight, and that did a significant amount of damage to a lot of the stuff we've got out here. But these are pretty much done. You can see the last few flowers, and now they're going to be fading back, and by June they'll all just be yellow and lying on the ground. That's kind of one of the bummers about the bleeding hearts. I guess these are like an old-fashioned bleeding heart. They don't last very long, and then they just leave a huge, like, this will just be all a big gap. There'll be nothing there in the garden, and you either have to have something that comes up really late in the season, or you have to plant, you know, annuals later in the season or something after the bleeding hearts are gone. Again, they just don't last very long. So all of these are daylilies that the missus has been spreading out. Most of the daylilies we have in the yard are the roadside orange, as I think of them, the sort of the wild standard daylily. And this bed here actually has some of the more interesting and colorful ones that we've acquired over the years, and so we're trying to break up some of these big clumps and divide them out. You know, you can see a big clump here, big clump there. There's a few wads here and there. So as, well, I say we, as my wife breaks them up, she's moving some of them over there. She's putting some of them over here in the bed by the driveway. This bed's starting to do really well. Again, it's just too many plants to point out individually. You can see we've got some nice good iris spikes coming up here. Looking forward to that. Just took a bunch of very large hostas out of this area. They were so big they were actually overlapping into the driveway, and they have been transplanted down onto the side of the driveway to sort of help with the erosion, and it'll give a little more attractive appeal as we drive up the driveway. It'll be lined on either side with the hostas and daylilies and all that kind of stuff that we've been putting down there. Getting over here into the sort of weedy area. These are all money plants, and I've talked about them before. They will develop seed pods that look like little golden coins, sort of. We will see them soon enough. We've got these everywhere. They grow down on the front hill, and again, they sort of just grow like a weed. I think we will skip all of the driveway and all that stuff today. You can kind of get the idea. Down here along this side is where we're trying to plug in lots of hostas. We want it to just be thick and bushy. Plus we got a big hill that drops off on this side, and we're getting erosion. You can actually see the driveway itself is starting to sort of drop and crack. So anything we can plant along the top there to get some roots down into the ground is going to be helpful, in addition to all the trees and small shrubs and everything that are already there. And then of course this side's already established with hosta, and we got ivy and all kinds of stuff down there. Again, we'll save that for another video. Bunch of daylilies here. These are all our roadside orange daylilies. These are all roadside orange daylilies. Just about everywhere where there used to be a tree once upon a time is now surrounded by daylilies and hostas and all that sort of thing. The people that we bought the house from planted these. They must have bought a truckload of these basic generic sort of green and white hostas, and they planted them around everything. So all of these sort of circular clumps you see that are around old trees and dead trees or whatever, they were existing when we got here. A significant portion of the rest of what you see we've done since we've been here, over the last 20 years or so. It'll be 20 years this August, actually. One of the dogwoods that's just growing up there in the woods is blooming, looking beautiful. This is another one of our azaleas that's getting ready to go. It's another one of the white ones. So you can see we let everything sort of do its thing naturally. We don't actually groom them or shape them or whatever. We just let them grow as a wild bush, and I like them that way personally. I really love these double daffodils. It's like the last two daffodils we've got in the yard, and they're so pretty. We'll get more that come up later. We try to space them out. We try to plant early, mid, and late flowers so that we get a cycle of different flowers all throughout the year. So we will probably have more daffodils later, but those are the last we've got going on right now. So I'm not going to walk up there or do anything up there. This is an area where you can see a million hostas. You can already see where I'm starting to cut them with the mower as I go over. But all these little tiny things, not every single one of course, but you'd be surprised at how many of those little green spots you're looking at are actually hostas. This one right here is the mother plant from a lot of them, and I've just got so many coming up through there. This is our former fern garden. There's still, you know, it's all still there somewhere, but it's just all overgrown now. So again, we're not going to go looking around up in there at the moment. But you can see all these little hostas coming in here. And I will say that I do sell my aquarium plants as I get too many of them, and I don't see any reason why I can't sell any of these yard plants if anybody's interested in small hostas. And again, we'll see a few in a moment that I could dig up easily, put in a bag and drop in the mail. So I'll do the same thing with any of these small yard plants, bits of fern, you know, anything you see that you like, let me know. I'll put my email down below and you can contact me, and if it's something that I can either take a cutting or dig one up or something, if I can get it to you, I certainly will. And this gives you a little bit of an idea. Eventually I'll mow all this area and mow all this down, but all of these hostas are just hostas that are coming up. I will dig up any one of these and get rid of them. We have hundreds and hundreds of them, and this is just one little patch. I can walk around the yard and just find hostas everywhere. So that's what you get when you don't deadhead hostas. They spread prolifically. So this is the bed I said we would have a look at from the top side down. Again, kind of what you see is what you get. We got a little mix of everything in here. Same basic stuff all over the yard. We don't have anything too different in this bed than we have in any of the others. Phlox, hostas, daylilies. What else we got going on here? We got those tiger lilies, peonies. This area up here is the area where my wife has been up plugging a lot of different daylilies, so we should get some different variety and colors going on in there. As the fern fills in, this will get really thick and lush, and we'll actually probably have to get up here this year and thin some of that fern out. That maple tree we bought when we first moved out here was a tiny little seedling. Well, I guess it was a little more than a seedling, but I thought it was going to grow into a tree. I had no idea after nearly 20 years it would still be this little tiny ornamental thing, so I'm really happy with that. But that tree is actually, I think it was 3 years old when I bought it, he told me. So it's a little over 20 years old now. So I'm really happy with that. It looks good every year. Again, hostas, hostas, hostas. We do have some coral bells up here. So this is a little bit different in this corner. We do have some coral bells, and we will be seeing some more coral bells as we make our way over to the next bed. And we've also got the hydrangeas that I have neglected to mention. We've got a few hydrangeas in this bed down along the way, and the missus has actually been dividing up the hydrangeas. With not being at work every day and having so much free time, it's amazing how much stuff gets done. So this is a little plant. I want to make a little detour and check this out. I'm not sure what this is. I've always called this a trillium, but I have another trillium that we're going to be looking at that looks very different than this. This is pretty much done and past its whatever, apparently. I don't know why it's fallen over like that. I did mow the lawn the other day. Maybe I hit it with the lawnmower and didn't realize it. Anyway, really cool plant. I don't know exactly what it is though. Again, I thought that was a trillium, but now I'm not so sure. So if anybody knows exactly what that is, let me know. I'd be interested to find out. So moving on over to this bed. I don't usually approach this bed from the top side. I usually come in from over on the left there. This is the azalea. We're really excited about this. That was sort of a rescue plant from my mother-in-law years ago. It was almost dead and we took it anyway. It had like one little branch left surviving on it, and slowly but surely over the years it has come back. And this one's actually really pretty. Even if you just look at the foliage itself, it's that really dark, rich color, almost like a reddish purple color, and all that green growth is all the new leaves. But they'll darken as the season progresses, and by next autumn they'll actually be all burgundy purple color like that. So this is actually a really pretty azalea, and then of course those flowers on there are just absolutely amazing. Still haven't fully gotten rid of that fallen log. I did get rid of most of that using my little Barbie chainsaw, as it was referred to. I have a Works electric chainsaw. I shot a video about that and somebody made the comment that Barbie wanted her chainsaw back. So ever since then I've not been able to think about my little electric chainsaw as anything other than my Barbie chainsaw. So this bed has a lot of stilby in it, and it's also got a lot of goat's beard, which looks very much like a stilby, but it just looks like a taller, shaggier version of a stilby, but it's more or less the same looking type plant. And I don't know which ones are which all the time. I get them confused sometimes. So anyway, we got a lot of stilby in here. Again, we got a lot of hostas, and this bed actually has a lot of interesting hostas, different hostas. This bed we've worked on specifically, I don't know, for the last 10 or 15 years probably. We've been working, this all used to be part of the yard, and we've just been slowly turning it into garden beds. So here's a little bit more of that other plant we just looked at, one growing up in the yard. That is not the trillium I said we were going to be looking at in a minute. We've got some really good looking coral bells coming in here. Cannot think of the name of this one, but that one just pops. That stands out so bright and pretty. And then right here we've actually got a black astilbe. You can barely see it against the dark colored mulch right there, but that will get pretty significant in size by the time it's finished. I hope it should be coming in much more than that. Looks like the wind's finally starting to get here. Oh, I can't think of anything specific to point out through here. We've got more. See, this is where these might actually be goat's beards, I think, because these get really, really tall flower spikes on them. But again, I'm not sure. They look so similar to the astilbe. We also had, in addition to the frost recently, we also had some deer damage. The deer were coming over the fence down there and coming up through here and making themselves to home in this endless buffet, because all of this stuff is stuff. Well, the deer don't do fern, and that's about, and daffodils. That's the only two things in this garden I can think of that deer don't eat right now, is the ferns and the daffodils. So everything else is on the menu for the deer. Fortunately, I have a company where I spray deer repellent on people's gardens, and I was able to just grab my pack and walk over here, and I sprayed my garden for the first time ever, and I haven't had any deer damage on anything since, so I'm happy about that. Let's actually walk out here for a moment and turn back around and look at it from this side, because this is the way we generally approach it. So from here down is where it sort of starts changing into more interesting ferns, and I guess we're gonna have to listen to the dog barking at us the whole time we're out here. We got a lot more interesting ferns, and we've got a lot of interesting hostas down at this end of the garden too. If you see these are all micro hostas. I always point these out because I love them. This is a little clump. We only bought a couple of them, so that is all spread naturally by itself, and we need to get in and divide those up. We've got these are all micro hostas. These are not micro hostas, I don't think per se, but they stay really small. I think these are the mouse ears. If they're not the mouse ears, we've got the mouse ears somewhere. We've got the green mouse ears and we've got the blue mouse ears. You can see more stilbe coming up there, stilbe here, stilbe there. We got all kinds of different painted ferns and Japanese ferns and Korean ferns. We don't have any idea what this is at this point. We're not even sure if that's a weed or not, but it's a really interesting looking plant, so we're going to let it do its thing and find out what it is later. And see stuff like this. You see that's hostas coming up, these are hostas coming up, these are hostas coming up, just everywhere. This is a lot more micro hostas. Again, these clumps really could be divided up and we could spread these out. Not sure what kind of fern that is, but that's a really interesting looking fern too. And on and on and on and on. It just keeps going. And again, we've got hostas that we got to look out for. Hosta just coming up in the middle of the trail there. We were worried about this. This is our new addition from last year. That is actually a, this is what we're looking at. Oak leaf hydrangea. And the deer actually got to that. You can see all this is nipped off at the top. That's all from the deer. So once I sprayed it, they've left it alone. So hopefully we won't have to worry about them munching on that anymore. And this is that other trillium I was talking about. It's a native plant around this area. We didn't plant these. They just kind of were here or came up wild. And the leaves look similar, but they don't have that mottled appearance. They don't have that same coloration and pattern. But they look similar in shape and structure. And then the flowers look really different too. Even the way the flower spike comes up out of the top rather than having the flower directly out of the three centered leaves. And of course the name trillium, I'm assuming, comes from those three very prominent leaves that stick out off the top. So I know this is trillium, and it's an absolutely gorgeous one. If it sits still for a moment, you can just make out that little blush of pink within the flowers. That flower got munched by a deer, you can see, but awesome flower there. I've actually posted several pictures of that on my Instagram account. If you're interested in seeing pretty pictures of flowers and maquettes and stuff like that, you can follow me on Instagram. That's about all I ever post on that. And we will skip all down through here. I've got a trail that goes down through there and just whatever. It's not much anything. I used to be able to go down a trail and get down to the mailbox, but the deer started coming up through it, so we had to block that off. So now it's basically just a trail that goes around and it comes out over here. So it's kind of like taking a little walk through the woods if we wanted to, but again, not today. We're already 25 minutes into this or something. And lots of stuff planted and a few things starting to sprout and come up, but we've got a ways to go over here yet. It is still fairly early in the season. It's only May 4th. Yeah, it's May the 4th. Forgot all about that. Star Wars Day. And this brings us more or less back to where we started. Again, we can skip going around the front of the house. There's not a lot to look at out there right now. Anyway, we can check out some of these beautiful columbine. These will be opening up and blooming soon. So again, don't forget to subscribe. In another week or so, we are going to be seeing a much different, more flowery yard. Alright everybody, we are back to where we started, and again, don't forget, if you're subscribed, you will also get to see any video of the Baltimore Oriole, if I ever get any. So thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. Don't forget, this is my yard tour playlist, and I will see you real soon in the next one. Thanks again.